Hello, this is the 44th lecture on Revelation and World History. In the prophetic books and the book of Revelation, an empire appears that invades Israel and its surrounding nations. This empire is called Babylon. And in the book of Revelation, along with the Babylonian Empire, another invading nation appears. That nation is Gog and Magog. Last time, we looked at the description of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel chapter 38. Gog is the title of the king who rules over the land of Magog. Gog's army is described as consisting solely of cavalry. A nation with a similar structure to this description once appeared in history. It was the Mongol Empire built by Genghis Khan. By examining this history in detail, we should understand the connection between the Babylonian Empire and Gog and Magog. In this lecture, we will explore the connection between Magog and Babylon. Revelation and World History, Chapter 6, Section 5. Magog and Babylon. The term Gog and Magog, mentioned in detail in Ezekiel chapter 38, reappears in Revelation chapter 20. We need to understand the connection between the Mongol Empire and the Soviet Union, and why they are mentioned in the book of Revelation. To understand this, we must examine the territories and histories occupied by the two empires. First, we must examine the largest territory occupied by the Mongol Empire. It occupied a vast territory stretching from the easternmost point of the Korean Peninsula, through China and Central Asia, and into Russia and Eastern Europe. And the second is the territory occupied by the Soviet Union. Looking at a map, we can see that the Soviet Union stood on the very lands traversed by the Mongols' horseshoes. The Central Asian republics, annexed by the Soviet Union, were all countries that had been ruled by the Mongol Empire. And these are the very countries that gained independence as part of the Commonwealth of Independent States after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. China, once under Mongol rule, also became a communist state. And we can see that the paths traversed by the Mongol army were all communist in the 20th century. All the dynasties in the territories occupied by the Mongols were destroyed. The only country that survived defeat by the Mongols was the Goryeo dynasty on the Korean Peninsula. They invaded 7 times over a period of 30 years. But they resisted to the end, refusing to surrender. As a result, they signed peace treaties and were able to preserve their dynasty. Recognizing that they could not completely suppress Korean resistance, the Mongols sought a compromise. The Goryeo dynasty, concerned about the suffering of its people due to war, accepted a certain degree of bowing to the enemy. As a result, all the dynasties conquered by the Mongol army were destroyed. However, Goryeo was able to maintain its dynasty. This could be seen as a half-defeat, and coincidentally, only North Korea, half of the Korean peninsula, fell to communism. This is truly an amazing and strange history. Thus, the history of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel serves as a preliminary model for the history of Babylon, described in the book of Revelation. This is a foreshadowing of the land where Babylon will appear in the future. The Principality of Kiev was destroyed by the Mongols. The Principality of Moscow, which later grew, became the Russian Empire, expanding its borders to Siberia and the easternmost Korean peninsula. The Mongol army of the 13th century can be seen as guiding the path that the Russian Empire would expand. And, in the 20th century, Russia became a communist country. With Japan's defeat in the Pacific War, a trusteeship was established over the Korean Peninsula by both the United States and the Soviet Union. As a result, the Korean peninsula was cut in half, and its northern half came under the influence of the Red Empire. Even Mongolia, which claimed to be the descendants of Genghis Khan, the founder of the great empire, was unable to defy the tide of history, and was eventually forced to establish a communist regime, becoming a satellite state of the Soviet Union. The beast that came up out of the sea, Revelation chapter 13 verse 1. The first beast in the book of Revelation is said to have risen from the sea. This term for sea is also closely related to the Mongolian people. Mongols have long been fond of the word sea. We referenced Shibo Ryoteros, the Mongolian steppe. However, there is no sea in Mongolia. Perhaps the name sea refers to the vast, open grasslands. So, Jamuka, who was Genghis Khan's childhood friend and political enemy, used the title meaning Lord of the Four Seas. We referred to Ratneski's Genghis Khan, hero of the Mongolian steppes. This suggests that the Mongols referred to the land they inhabited as sea. Furthermore, the title Genghis Khan is known to include the meaning of sea. The following is a description of this, by Reinhold Neumann Hoditz. The origin and meaning of the term Genghis are not fully known. Most scholars accept Peliot's theory as the established theory. Peliot argued that Genghis is derived from the Turkish word Tengiz, meaning ocean. Moreover, it was claimed that the corresponding Mongolian word, Dali, became Dalai Lama, a title for the successors of Genghis Khan, and great figures in the spiritual world. Tengiz, or Lake Baikal, is a huge sea that holds the legends of the Mongolian people. Lake Baikal plays an important role in the origins of Mongolia. Ultimately, this title could be said to have originally meant, like a vast sea, the ruler of all Mongols. But later, with Genghis Khan's endless victories stretching far and wide, the meaning of ruler of the world was added to it. We refer to Reinhold Neumann Hoditz's Genghis Khan. In the book of Revelation, it is described as a beast rising out of the sea. This is precisely what it means. The territory this beast ruled overlaps with the territory of the Mongol Empire, which ruled the seas. And so, this beast was born on the foundation of that history. Even today, when we refer to the world, we call it the East and the West. That is, in Chinese characters, it is called East Sea and West Sea. This Mongol Empire was a great empire that spanned two seas, that is, two continents, the East and the West. It was precisely upon these seas that the communist states of the 20th century were built. Therefore, the book of Revelation states that this beast emerged from the sea. Therefore, the reference to Gog and Magog in the book of Revelation can be said to be closely related to the historical prophecy of Gog and Magog in the book of Ezekiel. The Gog and Magog, mentioned in the book of Revelation, are often interpreted as the final northern coalition attacking God's people. In other words, they are defined as the worldwide forces of evil opposing God. We have discovered a comparable entity in world history to the description of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel chapter 38. That entity was the Mongol Empire of Genghis Khan. We have examined the connection between the Mongol Empire of Genghis Khan, which corresponds to Gog and Magog, and the Babylonian Empire that appears in the book of prophecy within world history. The Babylon mentioned in Revelation is the Soviet Union, and the Gog and Magog mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 38 is the Mongol Empire of Genghis Khan. The Soviet Union built a communist state on the very foundation of the Mongol Empire. In the next lecture, we will examine Chapter 6, Section 6, Magog's invasion of Israel, from Revelation and world history. It was the Bible History School. if you subscribe and set up notifications. You can continue listening to the lectures on Revelation and world history.